My feeling is that once you've seen one Friday the 13th flick, you've seen them all. Haven't had the pleasure of seeing all 10 sequels to the original 1980s shocker, which also had its own remake in 2009. Jason Voorhees has never been my favorite psycho killer, but, well, here we are. Friday the 13th Part 3, released in 1982, and it has the distinction of being the only sequel in the series to be in 3D. And that is a bit of a blessing because it has its shock value when you see bats and axes and other weapons thrust at the audience in 3 dimensions. Other than that, it's the same old thing. Now, aside from a brief recap of Part 2, where poor Amy Steele, if you recall, survived the throes of the hooded Jason, this sequel finds more teens at Camp Crystal Lake. There are some hijinks of the low-grade variety involving some old drifter who holds a severed eyeball, and of course you see that in 3D, eyeball to the audience, and the teens smoking weed and eating it after presuming that the cops are going to stop them, which of course they don't. The most memorable character of this bunch is Shelley, played by Larry Zerner, who is now an entertainment lawyer in Hollywood. Um, and he's sort of a Seth Rogen crossed with Jeff Ross lookalike, and scares people because he's unable to communicate in any other way. He has a goalie mask, and this is where we discover the advent of Jason's most iconic visage. And one of the other sympathetic teen characters is Chris Higgins, played by Dana Kimmel, who appeared also later on in Lone Wolf and Quaid and some bit parts here and there. And her character survived Jason's attacks once before. This Friday the 13th movie has its laundry list of slasher film ingredients. Okay, so you have axes, pitchforks, hot pokers, and knives thrust into bellies and heads, once again in 3D. Sometimes someone is attacked in the showers and in barns with plenty of haystacks, cued with that creepy Jason Voorhees instrumental score. The best moment has Jason firing a spear from a spear gun at one unlucky victim. Once again in 3D. The whole movie is in 3D. Which, shouldn't be that much of a surprise. But wearing those glasses after a while can be a bit much for an hour and a half. But anyway, the ending is a creepy reprise of the original film, and it works as a shock moment. But basically, Friday the 13th Part 3, which has got shocks galore and some gore, has little to differentiate it from the norm. The 3D process is more of a tactic to make couples embrace each other and turn away from the screen when something shocking happens, or at least the girl herself can turn away, so she can be shielded from the screen as long as the cardboard 3D glasses aren't crushed. I'm not easily recommending Friday the 13th Part 3 to anyone, except that in an albeit extremely slight manner, there is a certain kind of innocence to this film, regardless of what Siskel and Ebert said back in the 80s about slasher films in general. Some a lot worse than others, but of course none of them come close to the torture porn, which I don't really like that term, of the 2010 horror flicks that we have seen, or even during the 2000 decade post-Saw. And this particular sequel is not as gory as some of the other Friday the 13th. And it's not boring, but it's also not much of anything other than using humans as slaughter labs in more than 3 dimensions with 2-dimensional characters. Which, doesn't mean that it's, again, it's not, you could do worse. And there are worse ones. Hell Night with Linda Blair is a terrible film. I don't recommend it to anybody in any dimension. There's some that I've forgotten about, so I can't recall if I like them or not. My Bloody Valentine, for one. Anyway, the list goes on. Now, I saw Friday the 13th Part 3 VHS back in 1983 in 2D. It wasn't available in 3D. VHS tapes didn't have the 3D effect. But it is fun seeing it in 3D. I managed to see it for the first time ever in 3D. So this will be the second viewing I've ever had of this movie. And for that reason alone, it is hard to resist for the Friday the 13th completists. And this sequel is also supposed to have been the last installment, believe it or not. But you can't keep a blood-stained goalie mask down for long. Um, because what followed was Friday the 13th, the final chapter, 1984, which of course was not really the final chapter because it was followed then by Part 5, A New Beginning, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason in Manhattan, in only the last 8 minutes. Then there was Jason Goes to Hell the final Friday, so twice they claimed that this would be the last time that we would see Jason, but of course that didn't last because, spoiler alert, 20 years ago now, um, Freddy's glove appears at the very end, so that led the way for Freddy versus Jason. But before that, we had to have Jason X, and which is a dumb title, and and finally we've had Friday the 13th, the remake, which I've not seen. So of all these sequels, this is probably the better one. The other ones that I've seen anyway, I haven't seen Part 5, Part 6, or Part 7. A little bit of Part 8, I guess. And never had the pleasure of seeing Jason Goes to Hell. So there it is. So anyway, yeah. But if you've got nothing better to do on a Friday night, or if it is Friday the 13th at some point again, you could do worse. So I'm not saying this is not a glowing recommendation, but not necessarily a terrible film to see if you are with a crowd of some friends and watching it and laughing at it. So there you go. Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. And something tells me we won't see any more Friday the 13th now, but who knows? Jason might always come back. Don't rule out that possibility. And this is Jerry the Movies with the host, Jerry Saravia, signing off.